Ladies and gentlemen, it's finally happened. Big news in the chess world. And I'll be covering it in today's video. For the longest time, Magnus Carlsen has been world number one. Up there, for a long time as well, has been Grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura. Number 3 has been up for grabs. I mean, frankly, for the last, 14 years, number 2 has been up for grabs. But finally, Gukesh, after becoming the world champion and after being 27, 60, and 70 for so long, has continued his strong momentum from becoming the world champion to being the 3rd highest rated player in the world. And he is now about 30 points away from number 1. Crazy. If anybody wants to organize that match, by the way, can we just organize a one-off match? We don't have to call it the World Championship. Let's just get them to play each other. It's going to be great. That's the purpose of today's video. So that's what we're going to be covering, and it's going to be a lot of fun. As always, if you'd like tickets to the upcoming tour in 3.5 months, link is in the description if you want to check out Chesley. By the way, I've got some hoodies. I might consider adding a little merch store. I know they have been requested, but I do just have one so far in the house. And this is we're gonna just get moving here. We are recapping rounds 9, 10, and 11 of Tata Steel. I haven't covered Tata Steel every single round this year because you don't care about it. The views are not, they're like 3 times higher when I cover ChatGPT chess games. I mean, I'm just letting you know. It's kind of your fault. Well, not if you're here watching. E4, E5, we have a Spanish, and Gukesh is playing Luke Mendonça from, or I suppose Leon Luke Mendonça from India, right? Because that totally sounds, no, but on a serious note, I think, and y'all have let me know in the comments that it's because he's Portuguese and I had some sort of history and something like that. It's a Portuguese name. Rook B8, D3, D6, Bishop G5. This has all been played before. But this is how you play with white if you want to provoke something. In a lot of these E4, E5 games, for most people, they sort of blend together and look completely similar. But one of the most provocative ways for white to play is to play bishop here. And what you do is you keep the bishop here. And this pin is very annoying since black already cannot bring the bishop back to E7. So the most critical way that black can play here is G5. However, by forcing black into playing G5, you basically ensure somebody will lose. Handling the position is quite difficult. It is very complicated. Now, black castles. Gukesh plays C3 and knight A3, immediately putting pressure on the pawn on B5. Knight E7 is not directly defending this pawn, but the point is that after pawn takes, and knight takes B5, on the one hand, you can play bishop takes F2 and win the pawn back right away because you would be taking the knight. It's actually not what you want. You actually want to go knight G6 and start an attack. You don't care about this pawn at all. And that's sort of the dynamics of the position. It's that black actually is pretty close to starting a same-side king-side attack, right? And now we see Gukesh trying to do the exact same thing, putting the knight on the F5 square. We have bishop takes E3. And this move king G7, just a slow waiting move. Black has a lot of pawns on the dark squares, repelling the white dark squared bishop, the dark squared bishop of the white position. C5, very nice move as well. And from the opening, Leon was doing well. I mean, Gukesh was doing one thing very, very well, is that he was playing fast, right? And he was making it not so easy to make decisions. B4 is a nice practical decision. Does black take? Does black push? Does black avoid doing anything? Black spends another 7 minutes, right? And is now down 30 minutes on the clock. And Gukesh is making tough practical decisions for his opponent, who plays Queen E7, and defends himself. And now D4, and somehow Gukesh already has the initiative. Kind of fascinating. Not very clear exactly how that happened. Here the engine wanted C4, and it wanted this, and it kind of wanted to split up white's pawns, but yeah, I mean, I'm not so sure that's such an obvious transformation of the structure. D4, and now a very nice move from Gukesh, Queen A1. Rook A5, D4, and Queen A1. Just incredible piece coordination. The queen is going to help on the diagonal. The queen is going to also help on the A file. This is wicked stuff. There's a pawn hanging in the center of the board, by the way, but you can't even take it. Now improving the bishop. And it's a very delicate position for Black. Black's position doesn't feel particularly comfortable. The knight dropping back to the d2 square almost feels like every piece Gukesh has is doing something. Like every single piece. Maybe not the knight for now, but by moving away, it obviously activated the rook. Position is still very tense. Like what I have learned from chess is that these players do not make any decisive mistakes for a very long time. The bishop comes back to c2. Now this bishop comes back to e1. And Black's got 12 minutes versus 15 with time ticking. Now decisions must be taken. Rook f5 is a crazy infiltrating type of move. Leon tries to trade here, but that allows Gukesh to have a pawn promoting. Well, not promoting, but advancing. And now Gukesh shuts the whole thing down and completely rotates the position. Queen a3, look at this. So, look at how he did that. Gukesh basically plays like a Rubik's Cube game here. Watch. His pawn goes forward. This pawn goes forward, pushing back the black pieces. Now the rook leaves. The rook leaves because the knight is going there. The rook is going that way. The queen is coming up. Watch. Knight comes back. Queen and bishop go forward. Knight goes into the territory. That bishop, by the way, repositions itself a little bit as he's, trying to put pressure here or here. Knight f6. Rook c2. It's just about how he's going to get into the position. And now Black's position is collapsing. He loses a pawn. He loses a second pawn. And not only does Gukesh defend his king, he counterattacks, and that is fatal. That is game over. And that was one of Gukesh's 5 wins thus far in the event. We will cover another one. By the way, one guy who has had very, very, back and forth games this event, but also has the same amount of wins as Gukesh. Gukesh has 5 wins, is Praggnanandhaa, and that is good to see. Because last year, if you were following chess in 2024, Pragg had a tough candidates, and he kind of cooled off. He lost some rating. He's down to 2741, which is, embarrassingly low, obviously. I'm kidding. That is a joke. 2741 is unbelievable, but Pragg is usually 2750, 60. Well, that's really good for him because he's back up there. He's now 2760. Again, he's gaining 18 rating points. The fact that these guys can gain 18 rating points is unbelievable. Pragg in the first 4 rounds of the event beat Pentala Harikrishna, Arjun Eragaisi, and Leon Luke, who we just looked at. He beat 3 Indians. It's crazy that there are, almost half this section is from India, which is spectacular. They're incredible. Fabi has had a little bit of an up and down event. He won a game, he lost a game, he won a game. And it's tough to be Fabi because he's 2803, so anything besides victory is not considered great. And this one, a Queen's Gambit declined. Fabi goes d4, plays an exchange variation, QGD. We've seen Fabi play this on the white side, and we've seen Fabi play this from the black side. Bishop d3, knight e2 is the way you're supposed to play this position, and f3 and e4. h3, all of this has been played before. Fabi here spent a long time, which is kind of interesting, black castled, and Fabi at this point proceeded to spend 11 minutes playing the next kind of few moves and obviously preparing for the next phase of the game, knight e2, h3, and then he played queen c2, and then he played long castle. So Fabiano going for a very imbalanced game. We have a Queen's Gambit declined with opposite side castling. Generally, you are castling this way. Also, generally, you are starting with Queen c2, and then after h6, bishop h4, rook e8, which is also possible. There is knight e2, and if knight d7, you have castles, knight f8, and you have ways to get the pieces set up in a way that e4 is possible. Obviously, f3 is not possible, but there are some positions where you also play like this. You have to be careful not to blunder bishop takes h2. You play like bishop g3 or h3 followed by some sort of advancement, and all of this has been played before. However, this is very different. This is spicy. But Pragg is from India. He likes spicy food. By the way, his flag is cut off. Pragg's name is so long, it doesn't fit the box. There we go. He was not without a flag. Yeah, this is what you play. If you're looking to get into a fight, b5 and a5, very principled stuff from Pragg, who just pushes both of those pawns. And the best move here for white was actually striking back in the center, and if b4 attacking the knight, e5 counterattacking. If bc3, you then have to play bishop f6, gf6, ed6, cb2, and take this pawn. That is how the computer wants to proceed. So Fabi instead plays f3. When Fabi thinks for 12 minutes, you generally pay attention. He plays f3, he's trying to attack in the center, and he does it like this. This also makes perfect sense. Right? Your opponent's attacking you down the side of the board, you want to strike back in the center and on that side. I mean, this is a barn burner. a4. Somebody's gonna go down. a3. a3 stops b4, and now Prog has to reconsider his plans and plays b4 anyway. Oh. Right? a3, b4, ab4, a3. Prog's like, bro, I mean, b4? Like, you have to understand, this is a pawn sacrifice, right? It's a loss of a pawn, but it's a clearance sacrifice because now you play a3. White doesn't sit here and go, well, I'm up a pawn, and therefore I've got an advantage. He doesn't say that because he's Fabiano. So if he was Fabiano, he would probably say it more like, well, yeah, white is pawn up, so I thought I'm just doing well. Or if it was Fabiano who grew up his whole life in Italy, it would sound like, well, I mean, I have an extra pawn. It must be okay. And so he played b4. Now he took it, and now we have a3. I don't know why I just did a Fabiano impression, both as an American and as an Italian, but the truth is, when you enter a Gotham Chess recap, you're in for a wild ride, you know? And thanks for watching. b3 and king a2. And for a moment, it looks like everything is fine. The white king is using this as an umbrella pawn, hiding behind his opponent's own pawn. It looks like, you know, Prog is knocking down the house here, but actually, not only is he not knocking down the house, the pawn that he gave to Fabiano plays b5 and targets the pawn on c6 and is actually going to make some space for his other pieces. b5 is a fantastic resource, and after bishop c4, white is in fantastic shape. The rook is active, the bishop is pointing here. I love white's position. The only way, literally, and I mean literally, the only way that black is going to break through white's position is using the knight. If black gets the knight over here, yes, white's blockade will be lifted, but white is completely solid. You cannot break through this position, or you have to sacrifice material. So, queen a7, takes, and rook f1. And if you're going to give me I mean, this is spinning out of control very quickly for Prog, who has run into the F train, all right, going to Coney Island, Stillwell Avenue. And the F train is Fabiano Caruana, knight on d5, rook to b7, rook f5, doubling his rooks. Counterplay by Prog, but he's taking the rook off the a file. Queen d3. Actually, here, the computer wants to just trade the queens, just pump the brakes on the whole thing, trade the queens. But queen d3 is a very nice move. But I told you, if that knight is able to begin participating, it's going to be problematic. And the crazy thing is here, you know, it's an advantage, but if you ask Stockfish to play with white, it starts saying rook d2, and I can't really explain that move. So rook f1, the bishop goes to defend, and I told you, if the knight is able to arrive, that is the only thing that is going to be problematic. Fabi playing queen e3, setting a little bit of a trap, knight b3, rook b1. But Prog has everything calculated. Fabi went for a little bit of a bluff here, actually. I think queen e2 and then rook b1 would have made sense, or bishop b3, because the rook would have been defended by the queen. And then if rook b3, there is rook c8 ideas, and also knight e7, and yes. So you cannot just play rook c8, because rook b2 is check, but you can play knight e7 and pick this up. And the difference is that if you do it like this, you can't do this, because this is check, and the queen is not defending the rook. So bishop c2 and rook b2 would come in. So Prog defends himself, and the knight comes back, and the entire reason that the game ends here is because the knight made it. Like, we got here, everything looked good for white, but that knight made it into the position, and that was the collapse of the white position in Prog. Adds another win to his tally by defeating Fabiano Caruana with the black pieces. That's epic stuff. And they played at the Candidates last year, and I got news for you. I mean, they might play at the next one. That's a huge confidence boost for Prog, who's now won 2 games and is a half a point out of first. Only up against Gukesh. Incredible stuff. And tough one for Fabi fans, who is down to number 4 in the world. I mean, embarrassingly low, number 4 in the world. No, but on a serious note, Gukesh has overtaken Fabi, which is an incredible sight. Obviously, that is also on the heels of Erigaisi having his worst tournament in a long time, right? Winless, but hoping to draw out and kind of get a little bit of rest. We've got some more games, by the way. This was one of my favorite games. We have another man who is trying to catch the leaders and who's having he's a locomotive. He has not lost a game in the event. And that is Nodirbek Abdusatorov. And then I will show you one more Gukesh game, and then you can go about your day. We have a Najdorf Sicilian, and in the Najdorf Sicilian, there are no shortage of moves. By popularity, they are Bishop G5, Bishop E3, Bishop E2, Bishop C4, H3, F4, F3, G3, A4, Bishop D3, Rook G1, Knight B3, H4, A3, Queen F3, Queen D3, and I mean, then there's kind of some other stupid stuff. Yeah, and in this position, Nodirbek plays the 12th most popular move in the position, which is Knight B3, just voluntarily retreating away from any attack with E5. And now, if E5 were to be played, White can maybe combine a couple of systems and so on. Because generally, if White is going to play the immediate Bishop G5, there are some poison pawn lines is what they're called. None of that really matters to you. Don't worry about it. Now we have G4. So Nodirbek plays this and kind of turns this into a Keres attack. So in the Keres attack of the Sicilian Scheveningen, G4 is played, and if A6 is played, there is some stuff here, but instead of that, Nodirbek kind of sort of plays it, but with the inclusion of Knight B3, so it's not exactly that, but obviously Black has more time here, but still White goes for the same type of G5, H4. It's a very, very sharp position, and Nodirbek is obviously, he's looking for a fight. Queen E2, F4. I mean, just everybody's moving forward. H6, castles, take. And from the opening, actually, it's Sarana who is better, right? It is Sarana who has the active rook, who has potential play on the queen side, who has the Sicilian type of position. But when you play this type of way with White, you are looking for complicated, very difficult positions that normally would stress people out. And this is exactly what it is. Like, this is... Black's king is going to stay in the center of the board, obviously. Black has a queen and a rook staring down the sides. I mean, have you ever seen something like this? Doesn't even look real, right? Nodirbek now has to begin trading off of some of Black's active pieces. Trades off the rook, trades off the knight. Bishop D8 is played to potentially reroute the bishop to this side of the board in the future. There it is. Now the bishop is going to B6, and that bishop is going to A6 and E5, disallowing White from making forward progress. This king is just vibing completely happily in the center of the board, just doing very well. Queen D2 from Nodirbek. Black plays Bishop C7. That might have been a little bit weak. Maybe you should have brought your king forward. Nodirbek plays F5, closes down the position. Now Black jumps in with the knight on D4. This is looking fantastic for Black. Black has the game locked down on all three sides of the board. I have no idea what Nodirbek expects to do here. Bishop F2. Now here comes Rook H5. Now, Black is just encroaching. Center, left side, right side. The entire board is dominated. The only thing you can do here is complicate things, right? And Bishop D8 played, and the complications have paid off. There were lines here, FG probably were the best way to play for Black. Bishop D8, okay, Black probably thought he was safe, and he probably is. Knight E3 again. I mean, look at this. Dominated here, attacked here, potential infiltration, and now just calm retreat, and somehow the rook is hanging, so the rook's got to move, and now you have counterplay. This is not easy. Now the Black queen has to retreat from the queen side to the center, defending the bishop on G5 from White's counterattack. But now here comes Nodirbek, and now he's threatening to take the knight and advance in the middle. And guess what? That's exactly what he does. But it's not even anything. The position is still in the balance, but Sarana has 2 minutes. He has 2 minutes remaining, and he needs to make 5 moves. Sarana has played 35 moves. In chess, you need to play 40 moves in most tournaments to gain extra time on the 40th move. That's called sudden death. D takes E5. Rook takes E5. Now Sarana has 4 more moves to make. He plays here. So far, he's surviving. He loses the pawn in the center of the board. He plays here. Now he's surviving a little bit less. And now a very big moment. He has 44 seconds. Does he retreat the king here or here? Those are his only options. He chooses wrong. You see, it's very natural with no time on the clock to seek out counterplay. To seek out that if the bishop gets captured, you have queen d1 check, which is really, scary. But guess what? After king f2, the harrowing reality sets in. You have absolutely no attack. You have no attack at all. You can continue to give checks, but I'm simply coming back to block. The knight can't be taken because the bishop hangs, and also there's just mate along the 8th rank. Rook f6, bishop d5. Nodirbek calmly calculates. 12 minutes spent on this move. Rook g6 is a nice little trick, and king f4 is a gangster move. Queen f1, bishop f3. He gives this up. King walks out to the middle. And here Serrano resigns. Because the king will continue to run, the queen will be a shield, the bishop is hanging. Rook g4 was a nice kind of final, little trick, but it was just simply game over. And Nojibek also in a very close race for first. But you want to talk about a cool guy? Gukesh is a cool guy. You know what Gukesh now plays against the lower rated players of the tournament? Like, Max Varmerdam is a very good player. He's 2650. I think he's gaining rating in this tournament. Okay, he's not. He's losing a little bit of rating. He lost 3 of his last 4, but he was up and he beat a 2800. He beat Eric Geisy, who's obviously having a tough event, but Max is very strong. And, the way you normally play people like Max is you respect them and you play, e4, e5. Yeah, Gukesh plays d6. The last time the Peert's defense was played in a classical chess game between people above like 2700, I straight up don't even know. I mean, you'd have to go to chessgames.com probably to look that up. Like in a game where a person does not have to win. Gukesh does not have to win. It's not the World Cup. Like, it's not an elimination game. Max plays g3 and Gukesh turns it into a Sicilian. And for a long time in this game, Max actually had a very nice position. Like Max just put 2 pawns in the center, developed, repelled the black pieces, had a nice little position. And now, Gukesh is like, I'm 130 points higher rated. I have to win. It's non-negotiable. So I'm playing rook b8 and I'm looking to provoke my opponent. Solid b5, b3, b4. And now a big moment for Max. Does he move the knight to the edge of the board? Does he undevelop it, which looks stupid, but then the knight obviously would re-enter the game? Or do you play knight d5? Knight d5 is the best move. It's the best move because this trade, this structure, is actually very good for white. Why? Because it kicks the black knight away from any comfort. White immediately takes over the control of the file, and black actually struggles. Black struggles here because with these pawns dominating the space, it's not easy for you to make a move. Bishop b5, rook e1. Suddenly, white's got a very strong advantage. Okay, Max plays here. Fine. Gukesh makes a couple of improving pawn moves. Max obviously trying to bring the knight back into the game. But here, Max didn't like something. I'm not really sure what he didn't like. I haven't had a chance to ask him, but I think probably didn't like knight e7 and probably some sort of counterplay on the queen side. So he decided, I'm going to strike back on the queen side and get my rook out. We have knight c3, knight before knight c3, and Gukesh offers up the bishop for capture. That is a crazy move. That's a crazy move. Like, he straight up chucks the bishop. I mean, it's a bishop, But obviously, there was an idea behind this. Queen e2, probably the idea was to just come back. Black gets rid of one of his bad, pieces. And then maybe you're going to play knight d7 and go to that side of the board, bring the queen, bring the rook. And obviously, Max was sort of spooked by this, so he went rook e1. And Gukesh just, really, really insisted on giving up his bishop. But by the time you go to take it, it's kind of too late now. And now the bishop goes away. You can't take it anymore. Rook c8. And it's just like, this is the moment of the game that Gukesh is an absolute monster. So when he and Leon both got down to one of these situations where they had 12, 15 minutes each, this is where Gukesh is a monster. This is where I recently have struggled a lot. Nerves, just a lack of discipline. Both guys have 20 minutes. You got some time to go. How are you going to play this position? Queen b8, right? And now you have to be efficient with your time. Max immediately down 7 minutes. Gukesh trades f6. Immediate counterplay created. Takes. Suddenly Gukesh is better. Not only is he better, he's winning. Max, I guess, somehow here just couldn't handle the tension of the position with Gukesh brewing up counterplay with f6. And this is how you know you've evolved as a player. When you have this aura. You have this aura that folks self-destruct a little bit against you. They feel that you're about to do something in the position. And suddenly, look at Gukesh, the knight swarm. This is attacking the queen with a check, so you can't even take. And queen b8, and you are just getting hit from all over. King g1, sacrificing the knight. Knight comes out, queen e8, defending everything. That knight drops back, picks up on d4, and Max just resigns because he's 2 pawns down. He didn't have to resign. He could have played knight c6. And after knight e3, he must have just thought he was lost. The computer gives queen e2 and thinks that actually the game can proceed for a little longer. But yeah, it's obviously a very difficult position, and Max threw in the towel. And Gukesh, after 11 rounds of action, leads. He leads the festivities with 8 points out of 11. He has 8 points with 5 wins. Nodjerbek and Prague are tied for second, and that's it. It's a 3-horse race. Everybody else is 1.5 points behind and will not catch them with 2 games to go. Gukesh's last 2 opponents are Jordan Van Forest and Arjun Erigaisi, which normally is not a great pairing, but Arjun's not having a great event. Arjun has been drawing the rest of his games. He's tied for last. He has 7 draws and 4 defeats, which is insanity. And the crazy thing for Arjun is every draw is lost rating, which is just wickedly unfortunate. Like, that is Arjun's down 34 rating points in this tournament. That's nuts. Every time he draws somebody, he loses 1 or 2 points because he's 28-01. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if Arjun's going to try to win. I don't know if he's going to, what he's going to do there, but Nodjerbek and Prague are having also great events. Prague 5 wins, 1 loss. Nodjerbek has 4 wins and no losses. And in the challengers, we have reached the level of stability where the strongest players are in the top 5 and 6. But there, Erwin Lamy, the Dutch legend, is leading with 2 games to go. But it's still pretty open, and a lot of players can make a splash. That's all I have for you today. If you are a course owner on Chessly, you received an email on the previous platform meeting. If you haven't signed up for the new platform, you have received an email. We sent out like 40,000, but maybe some of you have retired from studying chess. That's also okay. And yeah, tour tickets in the description, Chessly in the tour, and that's all. More recaps on the way. Get out of here.